Yeah, it's you.
Okay, as you all know, this is exactly the right time when the Moomin trolls start to eat the fir tree needles before they go to sleep during the winter. And I think this is what I'm going to do also very soon, because I ordered a lot of books from Amazon, and I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to write my last book myself. So this time is totally perfect also to be a host here for my friend Robert Powell. We have been knowing Robert since 1997, when I was invited to do a project for, it was the big exhibition art transfer made by Henry Moore Foundation and Tate Liverpool, and Robert was the director of an art center in Wakefield. And I found this fantastic garden, and I stayed here for some months making this project, and after that we have been friends and doing a lot of interesting stuff.
He wouldn't leave.
No. And one of our meeting points were the written word, because I've also used a lot of stories in my works. I write usually a story first, and then the word starts to evolve. For example, this house is based on 5 stories. They are all in my PhD also, so it's a test on how literature can affect architecture and visual arts. And so immediately Robert found out that he needs to kind of fix my text a little bit there. and I realized he's also a poet and a writer. And it's very nice now to have him here, because I think it's this kind of, what is good with old age is that you get these long relationships, like 10, 20, 25, 30, 40. It's kind of fantastic, you know. In a way. Okay, I will have a tour of the house for those who haven't seen it later on. But now, of course.
You need to talk about AmosLAB.
AmosLAB.
Publisher.
Yeah, we have. It's great to have Hanna here, because without Hanna and the Kone Foundation's help, we couldn't have started up the whole Amos laboratory, which is a laboratory meant to bring in artistic research, artistic interventions into the academic milieu. And we have been now doing it for 5 years. And at first the university didn't want to have this kind of, they called us fake doctors, because both me and Jan-Kenneth also part of AmosLAB, we both have a doctoral degree from the Academy of Fine Arts, which is not considered, really as a real doctor.
No.
Yeah. So they were a little bit pissed off that this kind of guys tried to sneak into the academic milieu. But after 5 years now, we found ourselves that me and Sean Decker, the sound artist, we made they asked us to do a performance on the very big seminar the Akademi University had on Thursday. Like the President Halonen and all this kind of stuff. People there, and we ended the whole seminar with a performance. I mean, a performance. So, and also Jan-Kenneth had his fantastic exhibition in the what is it called, that space?
Water basin.
Water, yeah, it's connected to the
up on the Vartiovuorimäki, there's this observatory, and then there's a sub. It's an underground water basin, which is made into since some years into exhibition space.
So just a few words more about this performance. We made an apple concert where I eat a soul apple. Then we asked was the whole leadership of the Old Akademi University were there eating apples with me on the scene before 400 people, and then so Decker changed his sound. It went really well, and so it's very good that we can get art in this way into the academic milieu, and also AmosLAB has been a part of producing Robert's book, and also both Jan-Erik and me have also been doing works related to his poems, which is kind of crossing borders. Yes?
Yes?
Now it's your turn.
Okay.
Because otherwise I can talk for 1 hour here, or 2 hours, or 3 hours.
It's true.
4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours.
It's true.
Thank you.
Well, we've gathered a lot of people together for what's actually a little book, a very little book. But I have a copy for each of you as a gift back to all of you who've helped me. Everyone here has touched or inspired or helped in some way me while I've been here. And therefore, all of you are acknowledged in this book, and I'm very happy to give it back to you. But first we're going to read a few poems from the book, and Jan-Erik has created a video. You'll be glad to know it's just 3 minutes long, which we're also going to see. And then we have some Prosecco as well, so we can raise a glass together for those of you who like to do that. That seemed like a nice thing to do. And then I'll get the book out of the box and give you a copy each. So the book is hidden away at the moment. But I do thank a lot of people. I mean, if there's anyone in the room who hasn't directly helped me, you know somebody who has helped me. So all of you are connected, I think, in some way to this. And it's great because of the Kona Foundation funding that involved me to be at Saari, that I'm able to produce the book in this period of time and give it back to Finland, really. Which has inspired so much. But I won't thank everybody because in the back of the book I've done my best to do that. It includes the other residents who were with me at Saari for the last 8 weeks, because directly and indirectly their commitment to their art has also kept me focused and enabled me to do this. But I will mention a couple of people in this. First of all, AmosLAB, who are the publisher of the book, Jan-Erik, who's enabled the whole thing, really, because he introduced me to Finland. Mario, his partner, Mario Malin, who's a brilliant designer, has worked on the book with me very, very closely, and also she's acted as an artist, so one of the invited artists. So you'll find Mario's work in very old text with a secret message built into it, which you'll have to ask her about later in the book. Also, I met Frank Brummel in the summer, in May when I came, and I'm going to read the poem that I've written, inspired not by Frank. I mean, as beautiful as he is, as lovely as he is, it's his work that inspired me. And also Jan-Kenneth Weckman I was introduced to in May, and immediately we felt a connection. And you can see a small version of Jan-Kenneth's work in the book, and it was made for the book, but also, of course, the full version is over there swinging very slowly. I also need to mention in particular of the residents with you, Jyrkki Kiiskinen, who turned out to be a poet, Finnish poet, of course very well known, living right next to me, I mean through the wall next to me. And Jyrkki very kindly began to translate some of my existing work. And once he'd done that, then we made a decision to put some of my previous work, before I started on the Aura project, into the book, but in Finnish and English. So that's fantastic. And Jyrkki's also published, he's also translated 2 of the poems that are in the book. So with your patience, we're going to read them together in Finnish and English for you. Jyrkki hasn't seen the book before, but now he's going to get one. in his hand. And he also has had no rehearsal time whatsoever. Since he saw the poems, he hasn't looked at them. So that's the running order.
Okay.
And here are the two poems that aren't in Finnish in the book. So you're fully armed. You're fully armed now. And thank you for spending time with my work, spending some time with me in the sauna as well, and just for caring so much and taking the time with you. So there's yours.
Thanks.
You're
It's
welcome.
beautiful. And by the way, my daughter's name is Aura.
And I have a copy for her.
Okay.
So maybe you just put those in the bag. Okay. I visited in May, and Jan-Erik and I began to explore the length of the aura, and I began to write about the aura when I was back in England. So the first poem we're going to read is called Aura, and I love the name Aura. It was a real gift to a poet to have a word like that moves through so many languages: Greek, Latin, Finnish, Swedish, and English. So the poem and the book play with the idea of gold and mud. And you who know the aura know that it looks muddy most of the time, but occasionally the sun shines and it looks like magic gold. So, and of course the Finnish word for plough is aura. So it was a gift for me. And in England I started to deploy the gift. So this is the poem Aura. And I will read first in English and then Jyrkki in Finnish. And it sounds wonderful in Finnish.
Well, don't say yet.
Aura. Aura writes a waterway, ploughs pages of fields in a muddied script of aurum, gouged and versed in the dark matter of earth. Aura writes away in water. Aura, aurora, aureola, avra, and aura to and bo, abo, Avram, Abraham, wet tongues of men and mud. Muddled gold with golden mud, earthed ink scribbled through fields and ages, on pages of ploughed desires, aura dreams in water's ways.
Aura. Aura kirjoittaa vesitien, kyntää peltojen sivuja maan tummaan ainekseen, kovertaa taidokkain mutaisin aurun kirjaimin. Aura kirjoittaa alati veteen, aura, aurora, aureola, atra ja aura ja o ja bu, Avram, Abraham, Oopu, miesten et mudan kosteita kieliä. Mutaista kultaa ja kultaista mutaa, maadoitettua mustetta halki peltojen ja aikakausien kynnettyjen halujen sivuille, raapustaen aura uneksi vedenalon.
Those of you who have walked along a river and been inspired by the river will recognize this poem, I think, although it's written about a river in England. So this is one of my earlier poems in my book, River Inn. It's called River Walk. How quickly the city falls away, just past the last houses, through a tall tree veil, a broad, unforecast field, laid out in the sun, like huge washing. Above it, stacked clouds survey the land, taking time over distances. And it seems we've stepped into another place, any green where, by a river in any time. As though sleepwalkers, we've been awakened, or become children again, horizons stretched with possibility.
Jokikävely. Miten äkkiä kaupunki katoaa. Heti viimeisten talojen jälkeen läpi korkeitten puiden hunnun laaja odottamaton pelto avautui auringonpaisteessa kuin valtava pyykki. Sen yläpuolella pilvet pinossa vartioivat maata, vievät ajan etäisyyksiin. Ja tuntuu kuin olisimme astuneet toiseen paikkaan, jokivarteen missä vain, ajassa mihin vain vihreään. Kuin unissa kulkijat olemme heränneet tai lapsia taas, ja mahdollisuuksien horisontti jatkuu.
It's almost November, so we'll read a poem about November, where the river, occasionally the river comes up over its banks and floods the town or floods the fields, and everybody's surprised, including the trees are surprised by this. So this is called November. 3 days of rain over north, and by morning river risen, crosses the road to the rooted houses like a great brown robe, nudging before it an embroidered hem of leaves. Surprised, the half-dressed trees gaze down at their own reflections, cold water circling their feet like a dream that doesn't stop when you awake.
Marraskuu. 3 päivää pohjoista sadetta ja aamulla joki, tulvinut, ylittää kadun juurtuneille taloille saakka kuin suuri ruskea viitta, tuuppien edellään lehtien kirjailtua helmaa. Puolipukeiset puut tuijottavat hämmästellen peilikuviaan alhaalla. Kylmä vesi saartaa niiden jalat kuin uni, joka ei pääty, kun heräät.
It's very good, don't you think? Very good. You're hired. So I mentioned Frank earlier when we visited Frank's wonderful house in Maytime near the Aura River. He told me that in one of his works he had sculpted a pebble. A pebble is a small stone by a river or the sea, and the idea of an artist making something that's natural just struck me as quite wonderful. So this poem is dedicated to Frank. We've got it there yet. It's called Sculpting a Pebble. But it's not Frank's fault then. Whatever direction the poem takes is down to the poet or the poem itself. So the poem is a very thoughtful one, I suppose, about the nature of life. And Frank also took some beautiful photographs, very carefully taken, of the pebble. But earlier in the summer he'd sent me just a snapshot from his poem. And that's the one that we've used in the book because I love the pebble in the hand, as you'll see why. Sculpting a Pebble for Frank Brummel. Bent over stone for hours, the sculptor grinds a perfect pebble, a task normally demanding perhaps 10,000 years, the long tongue of a river, a sea's agenda. Simple, around the size of a baby's head, silken as the inside of an upper arm, it's a model of accuracy. Placed next to a real one, I bet even an expert couldn't tell them apart. 2 pebbles, both requiring the sun or human touch for a quantum of warmth, and losing its memory quickly, like the dead, and even more keenly, no doubt, someone the dead have left behind.
I would like to say one thing about the translation, because, like you heard, he uses 2 words for stone, a pebble, and then stone. But in Finnish we have only 1 word. So I was wondering which kind of stone Frank uses. And I heard today when I discussed with him that it's granite mostly. Well, it's already there, granite.
Oh, it's intuition. Or luck.
Yes. Kiveä veistäessä. Graniitin yllä kumarassa tuntien ajan taiteilija veistää täydellisen kiven. Yleensä työhön menee noin 10 000 vuotta. Joen pitkä kieli, meren urakka. Yksinkertainen, noin vauvan pään kokoinen, sileä kuin käsivarren sisäpinta, tarkkuuden mallikappale. Lyön vaikka vetoa, että oikeasta kivestä sitä ei erota edes asiantuntija. 2 kiveä, molemmat vaativat aurinkoa tai ihmisen kosketusta, paljon lämpöä, ja ne unohtavat nopeasti sen muiston kuin kuolleet, tai sitäkin kipeämmin joku, jonka kuolleet jättivät tänne.
One of the things we did in May when I came was Jan-Erik and I went to the archive in Turku, because I'm very interested in old photographs and very interested in the history of the rivers that I look at, including the Aura. So we were given freedom to use 5 or 6 images from the archive, and those images plus some that came from one of Jan-Erik's friends, Leif.
Leif is just arriving, by the way.
Oh, good. Well, the timing's good.
Just, yeah, just wait a second.
Yeah, so we'll hold on. But the point is, one of the photographs you'll see at the right-hand side of Jan Kenneth's image. And this is taken in the late 19th century, we found out, in those days which you will know about, when the ice has built up on the Aura and begins to break up and then comes and presses onto the bridge. So when we went to see Jan Kenneth at his studio, we already had these images. And I showed them to Jan Kenneth, and straight away we both felt the sense of time that's embedded in these old photographs. And particularly this one, because you've got this boy or young man looking at us as we look back at him. So it's a particularly moving kind of image. Is he in yet?
Yeah, he's in, yes.
He's doing the most important thing in our lives, is charging his batteries.
Hello.
Hello, Dave.
Sorry I'm late.
That's good. I was just talking about about you and saying how difficult it had been to work with you.
Okay.
Anyway, do sit down and we'll have a drink in a minute and it'll be all very nice. So
Okay.
it's great that you joined us. And I was just explaining how we visited you in May as a chemist, a retired chemist, to talk about that aspect of the river. But Leif also had these extraordinary archive old images of the Aura, which were as good as the ones in the archive at Turku. And Leif twice in the book we used one of his old photographs, and Leif has re-photographed the same scene from the same place, or as close as he could get. So this interplay of time is something else that we did, and Leif helped to facilitate that. The other strange thing is in Jan Kenneth's, in the photograph on the hill, what's going on?
Hey,
I'm giving a seat.
yeah, just wait.
Onko mä horjahtanut?
Yeah, Kenneth, sit here.
Thanks.
Finally, to say, this long introduction, that on top of the hill in the photograph is the old observatory, which is now part of Akademi. which connects with AmosLAB, but also is the location for Jan Kenneth's exhibition. Is up on the hill, and I do recommend that you, if you get a chance to go and see it there. Anyway, enough. This poem is almost a prose poem, and it imagines the boy in the photograph speaking to us. It's called The Ice, 1914. What are you looking at, stranger? We've come to watch the ice push at our bridge. Big deal. It happens every year. True, this time it's better. The struts beneath are breaking. They snap in the cold like trees in a winter forest. No one dares to walk on the bridge, especially the horses. They know. And you can hear the river speaking. Bring on spring, it's cold as hell, she says. Get me out of here. So here we are. Me, Jyrkki, Lena with her green umbrella, and a few others. And look, high on the hill, the observatory watches. They say the sea was up there once, and the ice too. Incredible. But who has time to look at the river for long? Some hurry by, don't even pause. Our feet are cold. We have chores, schools, errands. The doors of our homes are waiting for us, and behind them the warmth of stoves, steaming soup, chairs and tables and cups, and on the wall above a portrait of the Tsar. But who are you, over there watching us? What's so special? Do our clothes look strange to you? Our hats? Our faces? What are you waiting for? It's 1914. I'm Jaakko. Do you want to come closer? Whisper something in my ear?
Jää 1914. Mitä sinä muukalainen tuijotat? Olemme tulleet katsomaan, miten jää puskee siltaamme. Mikäpä siitä, se tapahtuu joka vuosi. Totta, tällä kertaa näytös on hieno. Tukipuut hajoavat, risahtavat kylmässä kuin puut talvisessa metsässä. Kukaan ei uskalla kävellä sillalla, etenkään hevoset, ne tietävät. Ja voit kuulla joen puhuvan. Tule kevät. Täällä on kylmää kuin ryssän helvetissä, se sanoo. Päästä minut ulos. Joten tässä me olemme, minä, Jyrkki, Leena vihreän sateenvarjonsa kanssa ja muutama muu. Ja katso, observatorio tarkkailee meitä korkealta mäen päältä. Sanotaan, että meri oli kerran sen tasalla ja jääkin. Uskomatonta. Mutta kenellä on aikaa katsella pitkään jokea? Jotkut kiirehtivät ohi, eivät edes pysähdy. Jalat paleevat, meillä on askareita, koulua, viestiä vietävänä. Kotiovemme odottavat ja sisällä hellan lämpö, höyryävä keitto, tuolit, pöydät ja kupit. Seinävät saaren kuva. Sinä, joka katselet meitä, kuka sinä olet? Mitä ihmeellistä tässä nyt on? Näyttävätkö vaatteemme, hattumme, kasvomme oudoilta? Mitä sinä odotat? On vuosi 1914. Minä olen Jaakko. Haluatko tulla lähemmäs? Kuiskata korvaani jotakin.
Finally, we'll just tell you a story about how the aura was born. And then we'll watch the film that Jan-Erik has made. And then we'll have a drink. And then we'll have a book. We discovered in May that the aura begins in a pine forest. So this story came to me here at Saari. The birth of the aura. Once, due to Finland's acute shortage of public toilets, in ancient times as now, a stray goddess crouched in the forest beneath the branches of her bird-feathered hair to take a leak. Thighs and crotch levered over pine needles and soon soiled soil. She hums a tune by a Stone Age rock band we've forgotten. Then, from down below, she hears a howl and sees with a shock it's a baby girl. She's dropped along with the usual stuff. Gosh, hadn't even noticed. Been so busy lately. Must have been the one-night stand with the stranger from the north, loud-mouthed but poetic eyes, who she'd laid with a laugh in a spare aita, and who left her in the morning, strangely longing. And because she's a goddess, and ours are troubled times, in need of stories to unbury good news, I'll sing you a saga. She gazed with affection at the gleam and the drool of the wailing baby, sat in the mud puddle with the ants, still scurrying to escape the downpour. She stirs babe and brown water with gold from her breast, to shape a river of mixed fortunes, brass and muck, milk and fish, war, wheat, blood, wool, kings, merchants, artists, bakers, builders, weavers, nurses, milkmaids, soldiers, moaners, singers, queens, shopkeepers, farm women, a people who always need very bright sun to see the gold all around them. She looks at the child. Run down to the coast, little Aura, she says. Grow a harbor for those at sea, a portal for those who need to flee. Stands up straight, adjusts her skirts, and strides away to make trouble, that is, be godlike, in some other place.
Auran syntymä. Kauan sitten, niin kuin nytkin, Suomessa oli paha pula julkisista käymälöistä, ja vaeltava jumalatar kyykistyi metsään, linnun sulkahiustensa oksien alla, päätti vähän lirauttaa. Haarat ja reidet vaaterissa neulasten ja mutaisen maan yllä, hän hyräilee kivikauden rockibändin biisiä, jonka olemme unohtaneet. Äkkiä hän kuulee sieltä alhaalta huutoa. Huomaa kauhukseen tyttövauvan, joka mätkähti maahan tavallisen tavaran mukana. No hitto, en edes huomannut. Niin kiirettä on pitänyt. Varmaan se yhden illan juttu pohjoisen muukalaisen kanssa. Suuri suu sillä oli, mutta runolliset silmät. Jumalatar oli maannut miehen kanssa aitassa, ja tämä oli mentyään jättänyt hänen aamulla oudon kaipauksen. Ja koska hän on jumalatar ja elämme vaikeita aikoja ja tarvitsemme tarinoita, jotka tuovat esiin hyviä uutisia, laulan sinulle tämän saagan. Lämpimästi jumalatar katseli itkevää vauvaa, sen loistetta ja kuolaa. Istui rapakossa, kun muurahaiset yhä räpiköivät pois kaatosateesta ja taikanneet. Rintojen kultainen maito, ruskea vesi ja tyttö sekoittuivat. Hän muovaa monien rikkauksien joen. Mutaa, pronssia, maitoa, kalaa, sotia, viljaa, verta ja villaa. Kuninkaita, kauppiaita, taiteilijoita, leipureita, rakentajia, kutojia, sairaanhoitajia, karjakkoja, sotilaita, valittajia, laulajia, kuningattaria, kauppiaita, emäntiä. Kansan, joka nähdäkseen kullan ympärillä tarvitsee aina kirkkaan auringonpaisteen. Hän katsoo lasta. Juokse rannikolle, pikku Aura. Hän sanoo, tee satama Aavanmeren kulkijoille, portti niille, joiden pitää paeta. Hän seisoo suorana, korjaa helmojaan ja harppoo tiehensä, sotkemaan muidenkin asiat, niin kuin jumalat yleensä tekevät.
Peak of aura, I love that a bit. I should have added academics to the list, don't you think? Long list of people. That's the reading we're going to do. I just want to make two more thanks, really, before we look at Jan-Erik's wonderful video. First of all, I think to Jan-Erik and Mario for opening their house for us this afternoon to do the launch. It's a great pleasure and delight to be here. So thank you for once again opening to the public for that. And I also want to give a special mention to Hanna Nurminen, who has joined us this afternoon, because on behalf of all of the other residents who are here this afternoon and everyone else who has been to Sari, Hanna was the inventor and the creator of Sari, so all of us owe you a debt, and all of Finland owes you a debt, I think, Hanna too. So I'm very pleased you could come this afternoon. It's very special.
Yes.
So Jan-Erik's going to set up the video and he will explain it to you perhaps a little bit how it happened. I'm going to get the Prosecco from the porch so we can have a drink.
I'm sitting on my computer. No, we're going to show it here. Okay, so unfortunately, I'm always interested in everything. So I've done everything from eating performances to kissing bridges, sounding saunas, and whatever, writing books. But I have never done a video poem before, so of course I have to do it. And my problem is that Robert writes so beautifully. I mean, it's the traditional concept of beauty in it, and I'm not. Yes, I'm also interested in the concept of beauty. For example, these tables are made to be beautiful. But in my art, it's not very easy. But so when this was ready, I found out that it's beautiful. I mean, in a strange way, there is nothing strange in it.
He's sorry.
Yeah. But I have to live in it. Okay, let's see the volume here.
I should also say that he asked me, he said, read the poem, but read it at half the speed you normally would. Read it as slowly as you can, so that I can put as much film in as I can. So
yes, it's rhythm. It's based on Robert's words. Okay, here we go.
Source. Not at the knowing coordinates, pinned down by rods and chains, zenith telescope, Ramsden theodolite, or US satellite, to triangulate the genesis of writing or watercourse. But in this winter pool, on a farm track, glass tossed by wind, or the dream of a child asleep in a Viking place name that slips among roots from the lips of a buried mother, ice made, furled, who waits for her people to wake up, wake, to see the sky walk on water, the depth of a salt tear far from the sea, a welling jewel, a river seed sown, where thought turns to words that squirm in warm mud and flow onto a page open like a flood field. Here